Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Boy, am I excited for this guest. Before I introduce them, here's a quote just for this episode. What good are you as a business or as a business leader if you don't care about your people? Adam Contos, CEO. Our guest today is a friend of the Culture Matters podcast, actually a supporter since almost the very beginning. Season 5, episode 58. If you're listening to this episode, go check out that episode. Our guest today started out as a Marine, served this country. Thank you for that. Tech founder, SWAT commander, consultant of security, and inevitably worked his way up to become the former CEO of the International Remax, if you heard of them today, co-founder of Area 15 Ventures, investor, and advisor and coach, author of Start with a Win podcast, book, and Start with a Win podcast. This is where my mind starts to get jumbled. Geez, I didn't even say his name yet. Adam Contos, CEO. Thanks for coming back to the Culture Matters podcast, man.
Hey, thanks for having me here. It's great to see you again.
There's so much. The last time you were on the show was, or we posted it, July of 2020. My first question is, if we could sum up the lessons in 2020 for the audience, where do we start? Is there a word that sticks out, other than win or something like that?
Wow. Yeah, I would say presence, because that's what we lost from each other, is the presence that we all had. And that's what kind of, delineated between strong leaders and weak leaders, and strong culture and weak culture, is how do you continue to maintain that presence? Because I've always said this: presence creates trust. And once we lose that presence, we lose the trust amongst each other. So a lot of people had to put it back together in the post-COVID period. But you and I, we spent so much time on video with everybody that we maintained it.
What is it about presence that creates trust in your view?
Well, the more we see somebody, the more we are attached to them. So it's called a parasocial relationship. And what we end up doing is, realistically, regardless of, what, people need to make you feel good when they see you or when you see them, things like that. We need to reciprocate that positive feeling. But ultimately, the more we see people, the more consistent we believe that interaction is going to be. And that's where that trust is built, is we're depositing in that trust account every time, we see each other. As a result, we anticipate how that next, interaction is going to be. And therefore the trust grows.
I've been watching you and following you on Instagram and seeing you share various videos of lessons. You think there's a connection to that, the value and output or volume of sharing your thoughts and your philosophies, and the viewers? There's a relationship being built because you're being seen. I'm curious.
Of course. Yes, 100%. There is a connection there. The more that you can get in front of people, if people see you every single day, Jay, ultimately they're going to be connected to you in their head and in their heart. Mm-hmm. And that's how this whole psychological principle of parasocial relationship came about. Is in the 1950s, psychologists looked at how people connected to soap opera stars. So we started watching TV, listening to radio. I say you and I weren't around then, obviously, but back in that time, people started listening to the radio and watching TV and getting connected to these different characters, and they fell in love with them. And when you think about it, let's take Taylor Swift, for example. She has done an incredible job of building a parasocial relationship with all the Swifties out there, where they see her, they're endeared to her, yet they've never met her in person, simply because she's omnipresent to them, and they trust her because of that. So it's a different scale that we're all involved in. But I'll tell you what, if you're a leader and you're present, even on video or on Instagram or what have you, you're going to build that relationship with the people that you connect with. Whereas if you don't, back to COVID, the leaders led, the hiders hid, and those that hid during that time fell from their companies as leaders. They weren't respected or trusted anymore.
And how do you define hid in that time?
I would just say not being present. There's a difference between available and present. or available and accessible. So, if you are accessible yet not necessarily available, that's what I always say: always accessible, never available. As a leader, you people can reach out to you and eventually get in touch with you, but ultimately they feel like they are accessing you because they can see and hear you. They're connecting with you emotionally. Right now, you and I just see each other and hear each other on video, yet we're connecting emotionally. And those that watch the video of this, see the clips on social media, things like that, they're listening to you and I connect, and they're part of that conversation, because ultimately the human brain does not know the difference between seeing somebody on the four corners of this screen here or hearing it in their head between their ears and being in person. Our memory serves the same purpose and says, "Oh, I was part of that conversation."
When an employee says, "Oh, you to an authority figure, you're too busy," or "I don't want to bother you. I know how busy you are." Do you think that signifies being available, not accessible, if I have it right?
Yeah, I think it seems like, well, first of all, people kind of downgrade themselves. They're like, "Oh, I don't get to see you. You're too busy," things like that. It's a little bit of shame on both of us. But ultimately it comes down to, they want to see you more. And I heard this: if I stopped doing video for a period of time, and I put out a video pretty much every single day during COVID.
Wow.
If I stopped doing video, I would hear from people, "Hey, I've seen you a lot, but I didn't see you yesterday." So, they have that connection, they have that expectation. If you take it away from them for a day or something like that, and I've been doing video once a day for months now, as well, putting out content every single day to help people. They want to connect with each other. We're social human beings, or social beings, and this is how they connect. So it's you're fulfilling that in their heart by just simply being in front of them.
We have an audience of content creators, entrepreneurs that are either they're doing content like that, and want to do more,
Right.
or want to jump in the game. What advice do you have for those listening that are like, "Wait, one a day? Okay, how the heck, where'd you start at?" Let's unpack that a bit.
And first of all, let's be clear. The one a day is a couple minutes a day. And ultimately it comes down to us batch creating a whole bunch of videos. So I don't create a video every day. I create 10 videos every 10 days. And you come up with those videos. I send it off to be edited very briefly. There's nothing spectacular about it. Some sound and some light editing, maybe some words put in there. And you can do all this on, like CapCut or something like that. CapCut's a great app to do that. In fact, TikTok is, yeah, it's an app on your phone. And you can do that. Just set up your phone and create 10 different ideas that are about you, that are, something that you would come up with and mean what you're teaching. Obviously my thing is start with a win and the, personal and business growth and development. So those are the ideas around which I create content. We shoot 10 of those in, really it takes like half an hour or 45 minutes at the most to shoot 10 videos that way. And it's from the heart. We put those out. There's 10 days worth of content there. And, 7 or 8 days later, you do 10 more, and you end up with so many in the can waiting to go out the door at some point. And you just keep refilling that. And what that does is, first of all, it makes you better at it. So practice creates perfection here. And we want to continue to improve ourselves. So why not practice, put yourself out there, content creators, and connect with your audience, and you'll see your audience start to grow. And here's the important thing, Jay. I've done a ton of business as a result of these things. People trust, again, who they see present. And if you're there, you don't have to do this cold intro. You can say, "Hey, it's Adam. I see you've been watching some of my videos. I see you connected by filling out this email form or what have you. Just wanted to touch base with you." And they're like, "Oh yeah, I love your stuff." And you've already kind of broken the ice on this trust. So why wouldn't you start creating content?
In essence, is that leveraging the parasocial phenomenon on a micro influencer level. I'm not Taylor Swift. Someone
Right.
listen to this. Right? Or
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what you're doing is you're leveraging that parasocial relationship. We don't need to be face to face touching somebody in order to build a relationship. We can build a relationship via video all day long. And the more you do that, the tighter the relationship. And then when you do meet somebody in person, it's hilarious because people give you a hug. They're like, I feel like we've known each other for years, yet we've just now met in person. I've had that happen many times as you're building your brand and building this relationship. And I'm on the Culture Matters podcast here.
Welcome.
Here's the reality. This builds your culture. This is what your culture is about. I took over as the CEO of a franchise company about 12 months ago. It's called Port of Subs. It's a sub sandwich company. And
congratulations.
Thank you. We acquired the business. It's an amazing company with incredible people. And we've been pushing out video constantly to these people. And I see them in person every several months. And they're like, hey, I watch your videos. I feel like I know you. I feel like, we're next door neighbors or best friends or whatever. It works. It's how we've built the culture in this company around how I think the culture of a business needs to be, because they hear what I'm saying every day. If you could hear what your boss says every single day, would that affect how you live your life and build your culture and run your ethics and things? Absolutely. It's simple. It's just transparency.
Churchill won us the war.
Exactly.
Talked every day, I think. I mean, I'd like to read that damn lion book. It's like 3 freaking, it's over here somewhere. Anyway, that comes to mind. Churchill on the radio every day. I have a question about the why then do I hear constantly the camera isn't enough or the virtual world isn't enough for the culture? Why are we hearing that a lot? Or at least I am. We got to get everybody back.
We got to get people together. Yes. There's nothing beats interpersonal communication. But the thing that's secondary to that is visual and audio. And I don't just mean crappy video. Yes, crappy video is okay, but the reality is high quality video, high quality audio, where the intimacy of somebody's voice between your ears and the sight of them at the same time really makes a difference to people in their lives. If they can hear the soft caringness in your voice, it's the same as somebody you're sitting next to closing their eyes and listening to you. It goes straight to your heart. So sure, video is secondary to being in person, but I'll tell you what, I can touch so many more people via video than I can in person. And that's what it's about. I want to spread my culture. I want to spread my beliefs. I want to spread my message because I want to help people get better with it. And this is the best way to scale that.
When you were last on, we didn't have the book. So what was the inspiration?
It's funny because I had the podcast Start With a Win, and I got a call from a book production company, and they said, hey, do you want to write a book? I go, yeah, using you guys as my publisher. And they said, absolutely. I said, okay, what do you want to call it? And they go, how about Start With a Win? That's what your podcast is.
Wow.
So I went through this naming process and things like that. And I'm like, they were right. It's Start With a Win. It's got to be, because it has all the different components of Start With a Win. I mean, I live my life based upon a set form of circumstances. I get up at the same time every day. I go to the gym. I map out my day. I keep a plan. I work my plan. I execute. I monitor my health, my relationships, my businesses, things of that nature. And that's what they wanted to talk about. And why do I live that way? So, we went back into, I was in the military, like you mentioned, I was in law enforcement. I ran a SWAT team. I built training courses. I did some tech startups, things like that. And the reality is all of these work off of the same framework. And that's kind of what we talked about. And that framework is you've got to be a good leader. You've got to be growing every day. You've got to be redelivering that growth back to the people that you're serving. Because I don't look at the people that listen to this as customers. I mean, these are the people that I serve. I want to help them be better and them be inspired to make themselves better every single day. So that's ultimately what the book is about, is building yourself better and thus building your business better.
What a powerful truth of the parasocial. Because if the institution is following you and saying there's a whole book around this, because you got
Absolutely.
this podcast, Start with a Win. How many days did you do that show before that happened?
I couldn't tell you how
Was it
how
years?
long. Yeah, we had a couple of years of Start with a Win under the belt before the publisher called me.
Was that daily? Like, was
No,
that,
it's
or was
once a
it
week.
weekly?
Once a week, and then every other week we do something called the Quick Win, which is a short. But now we've got shorts coming out pretty much every day, as well as the weekly podcast.
What do you what would be your advice to someone that's been thinking about starting a podcast but has hesitated, or it just hasn't manifested? It doesn't exist. It's just an idea.
Right. I would say do it. It's not difficult. Podcasting is not a difficult thing to do. I mean, you and I have been doing it for a long time, Jay. And I mean,
I'm sweating just thinking about it.
Yeah, we both started someplace. And it was funny because I hired
Is anyone listening? Are you there?
Yeah, exactly. It's just you and I talking, buddy. So you start talking to somebody, just one person, and you start adding to that, and then you learn about this.
The parasocial. I love that term. I haven't not heard of it, and I'm going to look into it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic concept. It is proof of concept for this whole thing. But ultimately, doing a podcast now it's way easier now than it was 5 years ago, because the technology is built for podcasting. It specifically exists. It makes it super easy for somebody to podcast. But what I would say is, and they can go to my YouTube channel, I have a video called How to Sound Better on a Video or a Podcast. And go check that out. It's, I think, like 8 to 10 minutes. And essentially we go through lighting, we go to sound, we go through camera and angle and things like that, and kind of stair step you up to how to become. I'll send it to you, Jay.
We can coach me next. Finish what your thought is. I got more questions on that.
There we go. But here's the reality. People will watch a bad video, but they won't listen to bad sound. They want good sound that makes them feel good. It's the sound that makes you feel good. It's the video that validates the sound. So if you think about it that way, that's why high quality podcasts are so well listened to, because people want to connect with somebody who sounds good, who they can, I want to go see what this person looks like. You got to have that available. But ultimately it comes down to, you got to sound good.
How can let's Adam Contos, CEO, executive coach, you're looking at my setup, lay it in on me. What do I need to do better? How can I show up better?
All right. Well, I mean,
what am I doing wrong?
I'll take you through the steps here. The first one is,
because I know it's not, that's my projection right now. But,
okay. All right. Well, the first one is your camera angle. You want to be looking straight on at the camera. Okay.
I'm not.
No, you're looking
down. Where the hell am I looking?
You're kind of looking down a little bit. I can see the ceiling behind you, buddy. You look like
I should have figured this out 268 ago.
Yeah. You look like you're about 12 feet tall.
I recorded 11 since the 2nd of January. You should have called me on the 2nd. What am I doing?
All right. People will forgive you if they know you're working on it.
I want them to see me fail.
There you go.
Please help somebody.
I don't know. All right. So your camera angle, raise your camera up to be eye level. And
is that
no, now it's looking up even more.
Like this?
You got to lift it up so that it's looking straight to.
I got to
put it on a book. There you go. Look at that.
I mean, wait.
What's interesting is your microphone actually works better on your MacBook or whatever computer you are if it's right at mouth level. I was grabbing a stack of books here.
Yeah, we got Adam Smith. You've read a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
Ogilvy, this is a podcast guest, grandfather, Ulysses, margin of safety is a good one for the investors.
I got a question for you. Yeah. Have you read Essentialism yet?
I've listened to some of it.
Okay.
McGowan, Greg or something?
Yeah, Greg McCowan. Yeah.
There you go. Great. I've heard great things about it.
Yeah.
I've listened to the intro.
That's the latest one that I'm in right now. It's the disciplined pursuit of doing less.
The disciplined pursuit. Let's get some Kierkegaard. Okay.
There we go. All right, let's set this up.
Is this too high?
Yeah, wait, let's see. Oh, that
Too
looks
high?
great. That looks great. Look at that.
Is that
Okay.
better?
That's way better. You actually sound better now because you don't have an echo
God.
off your desk.
This is going to make a serious difference, I believe, if in everything.
Yeah. So okay. So this is the first step, is to raise up your camera. So it's eye level. I mean, I actually look like I'm looking across the table to you right now instead of.
Can you believe that? No, I got a psychological question for you. What could be the reason no one's told me this up to this point? Roughly, if I think about it, you know, there's somewhere around 460 or so podcast. I mean, some of them are my monologues, but the lion's share are podcasts, right, with guests.
Right.
And by the way, 20 to 30 recurring guests. I got like friends come out all the time, you know, contemporaries. What could lead to nobody telling me this?
I have no idea. I mean, it's here's the
I
funny
haven't
thing
asked. I guess I could.
Yeah. So like my last producer, branding company, fantastic guy. He's the one who taught me how to podcast. Wow. He looked at every time we would have a guest on, he'd be like, okay, we're going to fix your camera. And so he would make those adjustments with the camera, raise it up, pull the screen down a little bit so you're looking straight on. And the reason a lot of people don't do this is very few use a stand to lift their camera up. You know, you've got the professional podcasters a lot of times also. You will see people that, you know, use a 2-camera shoot or something like that. In fact, I have a videographer here, or media producer here, and he was just walking around with a handheld, taking some handheld shots of me talking. But ultimately, it comes down to how do you want to look at somebody when you're talking to them? Do you want them standing above you where you're like looking up at them? No, you don't. So it's a factor, first of all, of leadership. You don't want to be looking down on your employees when you're Zooming with them. So it creates a culture of, okay, how do I feel when I'm talking to this person? If you're looking straight across to them, it's a little more comforting because we're on the same level, if you will, you know, to kind of put a quote to it. You got to be on the same level as the people that you're speaking with. You don't want to be talking down to anybody that's just condescending. It's not the right culture that you want to create within your organization. So this is the first step, is just to raise up your camera. The second one would be add a microphone, because again, we like that intimate crackle of somebody's voice instead of the echo of the room or a muffled sound. And as you get further away from your computer, and sometimes people have their computer, you know, at least arm's length away, the sound gets a little worse than it typically is. I just got the Zoom thumbs up by putting my hand out. That's cool.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
But ultimately, and microphones don't have to be expensive. They can get a USB-C microphone for, you know, $50 to $100, plug it in, or you can go high quality. This is a couple $1,000 microphone I'm talking to you on. It goes into a mixer and our editing equipment, but it doesn't have to be a super expensive microphone. You know, also you see a lot of people who do a lot of conference calls. They have that little boom microphone on a headset. You kind of sound like a little bit of a telemarketer that way, or like you're in the drive-through. I'm not a fan of that. It's a strong microphone. I would say just, you know, a $50 or $100, you know, USB-C microphone does a great job of collecting good sound. And if you do have echo, it's simple. I can't see your desk right now, Jay. So you could simply put a pillow on the desk in front of you, and that's going to absorb a lot of the echo.
Oh yeah, it's a hardwood.
So our sound bounces off, our voices bounce off of hard surfaces. And when you don't have a hard surface for that to bounce off of, you put a little sound treatment down.
Hardwood flooring and all that.
Yeah, it's this is a carpeted room. We have drapes hanging down all over the place that eliminate echo in this room. So you can kind of touch it up that way. People want to hear that you care. And when you have a more effective microphone, you can use a softer voice that is less, I guess, less aggressive in how you're talking to people. So you can hear how I can soften my voice a little bit, how I can slow it down, how I can lower it in order to accentuate my key points. That adds to how well people remember what you're saying, because it makes them feel differently. You're not preaching to somebody. You're not lecturing them. You're actually having a great intimate conversation with them.
So
So
there could be well, yes, subconscious,
totally.
how the subconscious of the counterpart
Yeah,
takes what's being articulated, because this is through a different medium, right? We're not in person,
right.
through the medium of the tech. And so these subtleties increase or decrease deconstructive conflict or constructive conflict.
Correct. Yeah, you don't have to be overbearing, over the top, things like that. I mean, it's what happens when you're overbearing, over the top, loud, aggressive. People's blood pressure goes up. They go into this survival mechanism, fight or flight, and they feel intimidated by what you're saying, and they won't remember what you say, but they will remember how you made them feel.
And the tech has an impact on that, lagging in
100%.
it or what have you.
Yes.
Great. What
So,
else? Anything else before we
all
go
right.
into?
So
Why not?
two more quick tips here. Let's talk about lighting real quick.
Okay.
So you have pretty good lighting there. I can see your face pretty clear.
Yeah.
The back of the room does kind of blend together because it's not well lit. You can see, I know a lot of people are listening to this, but ultimately you want to have some good key lighting. So you want to have lighting in the front, maybe a little bit overhead, or just be lit dramatically. I'm kind of lit
Just have this
dramatically.
like
We have a
this
large, there you
thing.
go. Yeah, you
Well,
got that.
this thing, I have this ring thing.
Yeah, light ring.
No.
Those work pretty good.
Um,
So, I mean, you've actually taken some steps to light yourself. So that's fantastic. Where a lot of people, if you're
is
lighting,
that better with it there?
yeah, that actually looks pretty good right there.
Moved it a little bit.
Yeah, that's pretty good. You have even lighting in your face. I have dramatic lighting. I have a big softbox.
It really
light
looks
right here.
great. And if
Thank
it
you.
didn't, I probably wouldn't be having this conversation.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. And then we have some accent lights in the back here. And then I have what's called a hair light, which there's a light that's bouncing off the back of my head, right up here. Actually right up that way, that is kind of helping to light up this situation and push me away from the background. So if you don't have any lighting in the background, see these two lamps behind me? Those push me away from the background as well. So if you lit up a couple of little things on your bookshelf behind you, it would actually push you towards the camera, and it would clarify that shot of you a little bit more. So front lighting and back lighting, just kind of play with that a little bit. You got good front lighting. I would throw a small, you can do like a blue light or red light or just a different color or something like that, a little accent light on that bookshelf behind you. And you can point it at a little trinket or something like that. But ultimately, you want to push yourself away from the wall behind you.
Well, now I'm sweating because I better get all this done before you come back.
I'm going to hold you accountable to that, buddy.
Yeah, it's something about responsibility reveals individuality, but accountability enforces it.
There you go. I love
I'm
that.
curious. I'm curious about the investments. What was the inspiration behind investing in organizations? And for those that are listening that may be looking for capital partners, advisory in that way, let's go in that direction after. So what was the inspiration behind going into that next level? Ventures 15.
Area 15 Ventures. Yeah.
What did I say?
Ventures 15. Yeah, whatever. I don't know.
No, Area 15 Ventures. No,
there you go.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I left Remax because I wanted to invest in some businesses with the co-founder of Remax. He and I became very good friends. Dave Lineker, he's my mentor and best friend. And because I was the CEO of a public company that he was a large shareholder in, we could not buy companies together. It was a conflict of interest. And there's this public company rule book of about 40,000 pages called Sarbanes-Oxley. And they said, no, you work for this guy. He's a shareholder of yours. So you can't go buy businesses with him. I'm like, that's fine. I'll retire from Remax and he and I will go buy businesses.
Wow.
So ultimately, you want to start in an industry where you're relatively well-versed. So for instance, I know franchising. Real estate is secondary to franchising for Remax. Remax itself, while you know it is a real estate company, it's actually a franchise company that franchises real estate companies. So we had 9,000 franchise locations around the world, and I knew franchising very well. It's a regulated industry by the Federal Trade Commission, and as a result, I was very well versed in it. I thought, Dave, let's go buy some franchise companies or maybe start some up. And he goes, absolutely, love it. Franchising is fantastic. So franchising is helping build entrepreneurs, is ultimately what you're doing. So you have this network of small business owners, and your goal is to help them make more money. Because when they make more money, you make more money. And when you make more money, you can grow the brand, and it reciprocates and helps them because it creates brand name awareness, purchasing power, things like that for them to help do their business better. Everybody wins. That's a key thing that we have to focus on here. One of our key tenets in this organization is everybody wins. We want everyone to benefit. It's not we don't want you to buy a franchise just because we want you to buy a franchise. We want you to buy a franchise because we want you to create wealth. So that's how the whole thing works. So we got into franchising. We have a couple of different sandwich companies. We have Daddy's Chicken Shack, which is a fried chicken sandwich concept. And then we also have Porta Subs, which is a sub sandwich concept. And we have a whole bunch of other smaller companies that we're invested in here and there. We're actually a franchisee of Harley Davidson dealerships. So we've got a couple dealerships there. And then we're getting into some tech startups that
can you see Buffett?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Charlie.
there he is.
I went to my first shareholder meeting in 23. It was
Oh wow.
got to see Charlie before he graduated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done some great work. So
I'm curious about the everybody wins idea. Is part of that so is the focus on whatever the franchise's value prop is to the customer, as opposed to the franchisor profiting from selling the franchises?
right.
If that's connected, because I've often watched the franchisor grow in revenue to the detriment of whomever's allocating capital into it as a franchisee.
Right.
Become like almost like a greater fool's theory or something.
Right.
Without sea bubble or
you've got this in a lot of times the franchisee becomes kind of dependent on the franchisor for the rules and regulations, because there's a contract there in place for them to license and operate that franchise. But ultimately, the franchisor, if they look at this as, I want to make as much money as I can, then they lose sight of the fact that their goal is to help the franchisee grow. But if they come into this with, really franchising, you should focus on two things. Okay. The first one is increasing franchisee revenue. The franchisor should be 100% interested in increasing franchisee revenue and helping control those expenses that revenue has to reduce. So ultimately, you take the revenue, you take out the expenses, that's where your profit is. The franchisor gets a percentage of the revenue. So if I help you increase your revenue, yeah, I win also, but you win at a larger scale than I win. And that's how it should be. Because I'm winning over the whole bunch of people. You're winning for yourself.
Is the underlying philosophy that the franchisee then they're the client?
Yes.
Not me. Right.
Right.
If I'm the franchisor, even if it's like below awareness.
Right.
I think I'm the client. Like I've just got to make as many sales as possible.
Yeah. But the idea is the franchisee is the customer of the franchisor.
And if that deviates, what happens? What are some of the ways that the franchisor can fail the franchisee? That would be my question.
Well, first of all, not caring about them, caring more about revenue than their success. And once you start, becoming the police force of the franchise organization, that's when, it turns into a parent-child relationship where, you're not partnered with the child, you're enforcing the rules of life on the child, and nobody wants to be in that situation. It creates a difficult conversation every time you pick up the phone, because you don't want to pick up the phone as the franchisee and get chewed out every time going, why aren't you making more money? Why aren't you getting better grades? Why aren't you picking up your room? Things like that.
Turn it to the IRS.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It just turns into a really difficult relationship. But if the franchisee looks forward to the calls of the franchisor because the franchisor is interested in their success, then it's a welcomed call. It's a trusted call, and the conversation is productive. So it's hey, we figured out this way that you can make more money. Let's try it together. So everybody has skin in the game in this. Act like it. So it's like if your trainer lost weight when you lost weight, do you think they'd be more interested in you losing weight? Absolutely, they would. Well, I mean, as a franchisor, we make more money when you make more money. So we are absolutely interested in you making more money.
Is there a connection with short-term view, long-term view? Curious on your thoughts on.
I think it has to do with, I mean, yes, you look at short-term and long-term, but in the short term, you look at how do we create the habits that create the long-term returns? Because we're looking for, as a franchisor, we want our franchisees to create generational wealth. That's really what it's about. But you create generational wealth one day at a time by increasing same-store sales. So if I can take you from having $3,000 days to $4,000 days, okay, wow, let's multiply that by a year or 5 years. So that's what we're shooting for and that's the first key piece is increase same-store sales. How do we increase same-store sales? Whether or not it's a brick and mortar store or a service organization or a real estate agent or whatever it is, how do we increase your ability to make more money today? And then the second piece of franchising is how do we increase the brand together?
There's balloons all of a sudden.
Whoa.
I'm not sure what happened. That was good.
That was cool. All right.
What's the second piece?
So the second piece is increasing the brand. So growing the brand itself, which means increasing the number of franchises out there. So when you're selling franchises, you grow in 3 different ways. Okay. One is somebody who's an existing franchise buys another franchise. That's how you increase your footprint. The second one is they refer you to one of their friends who they're like, hey, I love this franchise company. You should, my friend should buy one also. So you get a referral, get them to. And then the third one is you go out and organically find somebody who's not part of your franchise network to buy a franchise. But you'll notice one thing, the franchisee affects 2/3 of your growth. Your existing customer affects 2/3 of your growth. Now think about that in any business that you're in. If you looked at your existing clients and said, how can I grow my business? If you thought, wow, these people affect 2/3 of my growth, they're either going to buy more from me, they're going to refer somebody, or the third leg of that machine is I'm out organically finding new customers. 2/3 of your success comes from your existing customers.
The brand piece, that's the parasocial element.
Yep.
But that the sustainability of it would be rooted in same-store sales, which is connected to that mentor-mentee relationship. Franchisor, mentor, mentee is the franchisee. Like microeconomic, like who's walking in the door? What's that Chinese proverb? Man who can't smile, don't open shop, something like that.
I love that. Yeah.
So that interaction. This is a master class on franchise. For those that are listening that have interest in getting involved in that arena, what are some red flags they should look out for when they're interviewing companies to invest their hard-earned? Because I'm thinking of like everyday people, maybe they were an exec or an employee or they've tried entrepreneurship on their own, like totally on an island, and now they're like, let me get behind this franchise. So what are some things to look for to say, oh, that's not the right institution, right? That's not the right franchise for me.
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, you have to understand the culture of the organization. I mean, culture matters. And ultimately it comes back to, can you see yourself in that culture? Because the culture is not going to change to around you. You're going to have to fit in that culture of that organization. So I would do some research on that organization, particularly on the leadership of that organization. Is there a single video out there of their CEO talking about the culture of their organization? Because if there's not, you have to wonder, okay, what's going on behind the scenes? What's behind the curtain of this organization? If you go and sign up for this company and figure out that the culture is not for you, you can't get out of that. You're in an agreement, typically a 5, 7, or 10-year franchise agreement. Wow. So I would learn about the culture of that organization before you do anything else. The second one is, can you see yourself operating the system that business operates within? So that system might be, let's say it's a service organization where maybe it's a coaching franchise. Can you see yourself following that coaching or that mastermind concept and buying into it and loving it? If it's a sandwich shop, can you see yourself loving that brand and that product and what it's all about? Because if you're not in love with it, you're not going to give it everything that you've got.
I don't like sandwiches, but I want money, so let me do sandwiches.
Yeah, you could do
Okay.
sandwich. I mean, well, here's the reality though. You have to love the concept and how it operates. So
you don't have to get high on your own supply, but you have to
no,
enjoy the supply chain.
correct. You got to love this.
Nope,
I mean,
you're
but here's the
fine.
reality is, if you love chocolate, I don't want you owning a chocolate company necessarily, because all you're going to do is eat your product.
Oh, interesting. No, that
So,
is
I mean, you'll get
interesting.
sick of it. You have something that sure you like it, like our sub sandwiches or high quality meats and cheeses. People are like, I love this. I'm like, okay, can you eat it every day? No, our fried chicken, I can't eat fried chicken every
Yeah,
day.
maybe the founder of the franchise might have been like all hopped up, but maybe those that are operating that former.
I
Anyway,
I would
just
say
what a good.
I would say you like the product, but you don't have to live on the product.
Mm.
You know,
So pick the culture, do your due diligence, see
yeah.
yourself operating the system. Is there another that you'd advise?
I think, do an adequate amount of diligence and have adequate capital to get going.
Mm.
Don't go into something going, I'm going to try and cheap this. There's a pro forma for each of these different franchise companies. There's something called a franchise disclosure document, which is a federally regulated document. There are 23 sections to that. They're called items. So there's 23 items in there. And items 5, 6, and 7 discuss the financials around opening a franchise organization. If you can see yourself handling those financials, then great. I would, and then item 19 is kind of a balance sheet for the whole thing. So you take a look at, can I see myself doing this? Because if you can't, then you just bought yourself another paycheck, and you're going to be angry at yourself as your boss because you're the boss. So you'll be angry at yourself. What you're doing when you buy a franchise, you're not necessarily going and working as an employee in a company. You're buying the rights to a system to run your own company within that system and brand. You're the boss. So can you see yourself running that business based on those financials and those requirements in order to create those rough profits? And then if you want to scale it, you open another one, you open another one, you open another one, you become a holding company. And that's where you really create wealth, is multi-unit franchising.
I was just listening to a book by Guy Hands as an investor, and he would mention at the end of the book that his family, for generational wealth purposes, was interviewing for a long time to acquire all of the Scandinavian, I think it was Scandinavian, McDonald's, and how that was going to create this generational, and it was these hundreds and hundreds of, it was like this multi-nine-figure. And it was pretty amazing to listen to that story. And then here we are talking about it. So it is something that people do to set themselves up, their families up. So my follow-up on that is, for the listeners that could be interested in that as a franchisor, investor, advisor, coach, what are some things you're looking for to say, this person may think they're fit for that, but that doesn't suit them? So we could disqualify some of the people that are listening.
Right. I mean, first of all, you have to be willing to put in the work. A franchise is not an ATM machine. You don't walk up to it and it hands money to you. You have to put in the work. It is a job. And you start off as an owner operator 9 times out of 10. Even if you wanted a McDonald's, you have to be back behind the register. You got to be making fries, things like that. Every franchise company wants you to start as an owner operator, unless you're going in and just buying multiple franchises. Then you better have some really good management team that is experienced in that franchise brand. But the reality is, you need to be willing to get your hands dirty a little bit and go in and learn the business. And it's fantastic because, I mean, it doesn't take long. Most franchise companies have fantastic training programs. You'd be like, wow, I just learned a whole bunch about this. Like when we bought the sub sandwich company, I went to Sandwich University and I learned how to make sandwiches. And I'm like,
Wow.
whoa, I'm 52 years old. I had no idea that's how you make a good tasting sandwich, but that's fantastic. So, I mean, the reality is you need to be willing to stand behind the register and talk to the customers. If you're not willing to do that, I don't necessarily know that you're cut out to be an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs, you need to be willing to talk to customers. And they're like, well, no, I want to be a business owner. The reality is you've got to exhibit the leadership that you want your employees to be operating under. And if they see you do it, they will do it. That's how you build a great culture in your small organization that is a franchise someplace. How the boss operates, how the boss talks, how the boss reacts. And I say reacts because let's say you have a customer who's having a bad day and they come in with a chip on their shoulder. I mean, if you pound on the table and cuss them out, guess how your employees are going to be treating the next customer? Pounding on the table and cussing them out. If you're in a team meeting and you're pounding on the table and cussing out your employees, guess how your managers are going to treat those employees? The same way. So you need to be willing to step up and demonstrate how you want the culture of that organization to be. And it does take a fair amount for people to do that, because they might leave the corporate environment and go, I want to buy a franchise, which is typically where franchisees come from. A lot of times they come from the corporate environment. They're like, I've retired. I've got a little bit of money. I'm going to invest it in my future and my family's future. And I don't want to work for anybody but myself. So we always say you're in business for yourself, not by yourself in franchising. So, I mean, that's the idea behind it. You run businesses, you start scaling those businesses. Next thing you know, you have 3 of them, 5 of them. Take a single unit franchising. Let's say you're making $100,000 a year, just for a round number. Next thing you know, you own 5 of them. You've got synergies. So you're not now bringing in 100,000 per store. You're bringing in 125 per store. Things start magnifying.
Real estate, a lot of uncertainty. I've had a tremendous amount of guests on in the last year and a half. You're behind the scenes now in that industry. There's some disruption going on. Where's the opportunity? What advice do you have for the listeners that are in and around real estate?
Well, first of all, if you're a real estate agent, I think you need to take a hard look at how you justify your value proposition to your customer. Because given all the class action lawsuits going on in the space, they are questioning, okay, what are you doing for me for that commission? So you need to have a hard conversation with yourself and say, am I just making a commission, or I'm actually delivering value that deserves that commission? And I think that's really one of the key points in real estate right now. If you're a consumer, I would say, make sure you're getting the value from your real estate agent in order for them to earn that commission. Because what is a commission? It is an exchange of money for value delivered. Okay. So let's justify our value in this marketplace. Now, where are the opportunities here? Well, ultimately there's a lot of opportunity showing up in the explanation of that value. The National Association of Realtors suffered a big loss in a class action lawsuit recently. They're probably going to appeal it and things like that, as have several other players. There are like 18 lawsuits going on, class action lawsuits going on in the real estate space right now. It's really, really overwhelming. But ultimately, it's calling into question how people operate. And is that ecosystem closed out where people are required to operate that way, or is there antitrust going on? We, as people in the real estate space, I don't sell houses. I run real estate companies. I run, right now I'm involved in some startups that are looking at what are the opportunities available in the real estate space. But ultimately, what it comes down to is, how is the consumer being treated, and is the value being justified to the consumer by the agent for that commission? And some of the control of the information in the process, I think there's going to be some decoupling going on, meaning the people have to be a member of National Association of Realtors and their state association of Realtors and their local board of Realtors in order to be part of the MLS, in order to be able to sell and display listings from that MLS. But ultimately, I think some of that is going to create some opportunities for disruptors to come in, some new tech plays to come into the space. So I keep an eye on the real estate space. I think it's going to be exciting over the next couple of years.
that alignment will break, be misaligned. So new opportunities will come in to serve the people that want to be in those roles
Yep.
as they change or something.
Yeah. Every time there's change happening, every time there's some sort of some change, a rule change or law change or anything like that happens in an industry, it opens the doors for new entrants into the business space. So what's going on right now is absolutely going to change the real estate space. Will we see new entrants? Yes, we will. We will see different companies pop up. We will see different tech providers pop up. We will see different opportunities for consulting pop up. But realistically, it's going to come down to value delivery like any other business is. There must be value for money in any business. And where is that value gap going to occur in the real estate space?
If you're listening to this podcast, I challenge you to share this episode, leave a comment, leave a review on the Culture Matters podcast. Final word, how do we start with a win, Adam, Contos CEO in 2024?
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. I appreciate you having me on here. And thanks to everybody for listening. Here's what I would say. Don't settle. Okay. Always go out and be the best that you can and don't settle. When you've done something, go, am I settling for what I've got right now? Or can I do more? That's where you find that magic space is above settlement. It's we only show up with 25 to 40% of our capability. Where's the rest of it? Look in that bucket that you brought to work and go, oh, I can do 2 more deals. I can make 5 more calls. I can make 3 more people smile today by picking up the phone and contacting my customers. And as a result, I'm not going to settle for where I'm at right now. I'm going to be better in 2024.
Adam, where can people follow you most quickly? Get that parasocial phenomenon.
There you go. You can go to Adam Contos CEO on all the socials, or you can just find me at adamcontos.com.
If you're listening, please share this out. We'll see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast.